Hello and welcome to the conversation here on News Central Television, the show where we bring you the latest news and analysis on the biggest stories on the African continent. I'm Benga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. And so far on the African continent, we have so many stories making headlines. And following the protests going on in Sudan, we know of the military coup going, and a lot of citizens are still demonstrating, calling for civilian transition of democracy. We've now had people barricade the streets in Sudan for a 2-day civil disobedience.
And the doctors in Sudan are also on strike. They refuse to, in the military hospital, they refuse to treat security personnel. Yeah. So it's been long drawn. We don't have crystal balls in front of us, so we can't tell how that's going to play out. But we're definitely monitoring the situation there.
And still talking about elections now, we know that the Gambia's president, Adama Barrow, has been inaugurated for a second term.
Yes, and he won in kind of like a landslide victory.
Yeah,
so it's nice that we see transitions in Africa that is peaceful and not contested, and there was zero violence. So Gambia, interestingly, is becoming a model of democracy. They were under an authoritarian rule under Yahya Jammeh
yes.
For quite a long time. So that's a good one. But
and a lot of people are expecting so much for Adama Barrow in this second term.
Yes, and let's get to our business of today. Today we'll be looking at Kenya and also Mali. So we're looking at one side of the continent, east and west. First, let's take you to Kenya, where at least 30 governors have endorsed the Orange Democratic Movement leader, Raila Odinga's presidential bid, stating that they are confident that he will protect devolution as provided for under the Constitution. Speaking after the meeting, the ODM leader in Naivasha on Monday, the county chiefs, led by Council of Governors Chairman Martin Wambora and Nakuru Governor Lee Kiyanjui, said they decided to support Odinga due to his role in championing the devolution change.
Now, Odinga on his part welcomed the endorsement and added that working together with governors will improve service delivery to citizens, as well as improve access to social amenities, such as roads and supply water. If nothing changes, Kenyans are expected to go to the polls on the 9th of August 2022 to elect a new president. Now, joining us live to discuss this all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, is Richard Busire, a political analyst. Welcome to the conversation, Richard.
Thank you for inviting me.
So a lot of people heard of the news of Raila Odinga being endorsed by so many governors. Is it game over for the other opponents and candidates?
No, it's not yet game over, but it's a step ahead for Raila Odinga because these governors are like majority of them have already endorsed him. In Kenya, we have 47 governors. And if you get support from 30 governors, and I'm sure the number will increase for him, you are a step ahead of your rival. But it's not yet game over.
How big of a deal is this endorsement by the governors? I mean, 30 out of 47 is
That's a pretty large number.
It's a pretty large number.
Yeah. It's a large number. You know, Raila has managed to get these numbers because of the support by the incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is working behind the scenes in support of Raila Odinga. You remember the two had a handshake. They call it a handshake pact in 2017 after the 2018 after the disputed presidential election. So the two have been working together, and they are forming a coalition behind the scenes, and the coalition is already shaping up. And that's why Raila Odinga has a majority of the governors behind him. And the coalition behind Raila Odinga is called Azimio la Umoja Movement. And that's where all 30 governors are putting their efforts behind Raila Odinga to ensure that he clinches the presidency come August 9th.
Okay, Richard, I'm happy you mentioned something about the endorsement of Raila Odinga by the incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta. Has President Kenyatta come out explicitly to say that, look, this is my candidate for the presidency, or we're just making assumptions based on the handshake, the famous handshake we saw?
President Uhuru Kenyatta has not yet come out explicitly to say that Raila Odinga is my preferred presidential candidate, but he has already shown his supporters that this is the way to go. And it's too early for, the campaigns have not yet officially started, but when they officially kick off, I'm sure President Uhuru Kenyatta will be on the campaign trail in support of Raila Odinga, because he said that he wants someone who can implement all his agenda and vision. And Raila Odinga has also said that he will continue with President Uhuru Kenyatta's vision for Kenya. And the two are working hand in hand. If you can see all the foot soldiers of President Uhuru Kenyatta working together with Raila Odinga's foot soldiers. So it's already, in Kenya's eyes, it's already a done deal that President Uhuru Kenyatta will support Raila Odinga, but right now he's working behind the scenes. You cannot say it's a done deal, but definitely by, let's say by April, things will shape up.
This is why election and politics are usually interesting. When it's time for election period, we see so many parties join together. And talking about the truce and the famous handshake, last year, judges blocked the constitutional amendment bill popularly known as the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, and it was irregular. They termed it as irregular, illegal, and unconstitutional. Now, President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga argued that the proposed constitutional changes will end the winner-takes-all structure of Kenyan politics, which is often followed by deadly violence. Now, what is your assessment of the BBI initiative, especially as it has been brought back to court again, despite so much criticisms about it?
Yeah, the BBI case was thrown out by the Court of Appeal. From the High Court, they started at the High Court, then the Court of Appeal, but now the case is at the Supreme Court. And you know very well, if the Supreme Court throws it away, it will go back to ground zero. But at the moment, those who are supporting BBI are very optimistic that the Supreme Court will revive the BBI. Even the president said, President Uhuru Kenyatta said they're determined to revive BBI once the next government comes in. Even Raila Odinga said if he's elected, he will revive the BBI. And I'm sure Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta are working behind the scenes to ensure that BBI comes back to life. BBI was creating a structure which allowed political kingpins to share power. Kenya has been, since multi-party in 1992, there has been no single-party rule in Kenya. People have been doing coalitions since 1992. It's very hard to win an election in Kenya with a single party because we are a multi-ethnic society which vote along ethnic lines. So BBI, I'm sure, will be implemented in the future if Raila wins the presidency. But on the other side, William Ruto said he's not supporting BBI. So we are waiting to see what the Supreme Court will say.
But what are the major disadvantages of the BBI initiative? Because he talked about avoiding the whole winner takes it all, and it makes opposition parties happy and avoids political violence after elections. So what exactly are the major disadvantages of this initiative?
The major disadvantages, I can say BBI, maybe it will kill opposition. I don't know. People are saying that if, for example, Raila Odinga wins the presidency, he will take people from outside his coalition maybe and make them comfortable in the government. And also, which means he will push the opposition leaders. So that's why people are saying opposition will die, but I don't think so.
It also proposes to increase the size of government.
Yes.
Yes, there will be more parliamentary seats and all of that. Yeah. And I guess that's why opponents of BBI are, they're not too happy about it.
Those who are opposing BBI are saying this BBI will expand the executive and be a burden to the taxpayers. And but at the same time, there are some people who are saying because of post-election violence in Kenya, if BBI is implemented, it will help to end the winner takes it all. You know why people are fighting in Kenya? Because of the people of the winner takes it all. If you win the government in Kenya, the opposition people stay in the cold for like 5 years or 10 years. So BBI will try and end that winner takes it all situation in Kenya. And there was also a proposal in the BBI to increase the number of constituencies by 70 from the current 290. So people are saying there was no clear structure or consultation to come up with a number of constituencies to be increased. But they will talk about it in court. So we're waiting for the outcome of the court process about it.
You know, Benga, Richard, it's also part of the things that people complain about is the continued relevance of Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta with this BBI initiative.
Now, Richard, politics in Kenya and a lot of parts of Africa is heavily reliant on financial muscle and handouts, a lot of personality politics without much conversation on substance issues and the manifesto of these parties. What's the situation like as we inch towards the August 9th presidential elections? Have things changed? Have people started discussing issues and manifesto is just about the ethnic kingpins and money bags and non-issues?
You know, we are still a developing country. We are still developing our democracy. We started a modern multi-party democracy in 1992. So we are still coming up. Every party has manifestos in Kenya, but when governments take over, people try and forget the manifesto. You know, in the Kenyan society, we do politics from the day a presidential winner is sworn in to the next election. In fact, we do politics every day. With football and economy and agriculture come after politics. Politics is our food, Monday to Friday, Monday to Monday. So manifesto, we are, right now I think people are focusing on the issues they are trying, but more, ethnicity and regional kingpins will play a big role than the manifestos. People don't even read the manifestos. They focus on their regional kingpins, ethnicity, and other issues.
Richard, about ordinary Kenyans, what are their yearnings? What do they want? I mean, if you, I know you could feel the pulse of the on the streets of Nairobi, the guys in Eldoret, Kenya. What is that unifying thing that, regardless of ethnicity, people want to see in the next administration?
Right now, the economy is number one. Survival of the economy. That's the number one issue all presidential candidates are talking about. Because right now, because of the economic situation, plus the COVID pandemic, which has affected most people economically, people want to see their businesses coming up. People want to see the economy growing. People want to get jobs. The unemployment rate in Kenya is too high in Africa. So people are expecting a lot from the next government. So we are focusing on the economy. But in terms of the major problem in Kenya is ethnicity, which is affecting our politics. But we're hoping for the best.
Okay, Richard, let's look at the major contenders in this Kenya's August 9 election. We know that politics in Kenya is most times always a two-horse race with two major contenders. Will it be the same this time around? And who exactly are your proposed leading candidates?
Rita, I can tell you for sure that from my perspective, it's a two-horse race. No one should lie to you. There's a third candidate called Musalia Mudavadi. You've not mentioned him in your stories or your script. He has a big event on Sunday for his party. And
the Amani National Congress.
Amani National Congress. He said he will cause an earthquake in Kenya on Sunday. So we will take up on Sunday. We'll be indoors waiting for the earthquake. He's saying it's the next big thing, but we don't know. We only know about the two-horse race. It will be Raila Odinga versus William Ruto. Nothing else.
How about Musyoka?
Kalonzo Musyoka vying for presidency. Yeah,
I mean, he's a former vice president and is quite, I mean, is a big politician in his own right.
Yeah. He joined politics at 27 years old. Even Musalia Mudavadi is a former vice president. Like,
Yes.
let me inform you that. So,
So why do you think they're not significant when it comes to these elections? Don't you think they're heavyweights in their own right? Why do you think it's just going to be William Ruto and Raila Odinga?
First of all, to be a president in Kenya, you have to get 50 plus 1 of the casted vote.
Okay.
Number 2, you have to get 25% in 24 counties, half of the counties. Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka only enjoy support from their villages, from their region. In fact, Musalia Mudavadi vied for the presidency in 2013, and he only got 500,000 votes out of the 2 million votes available from his region. So they are not even regional kingpins right now. I think their support has gone down. You see, William Ruto has support outside his region. Raila Odinga has support outside his region. So that's why these two are the kingpins in this election. They are the front runners. The others are trying to catch up, but it's too late.
How about Dr. Kutuyi? Might he be an outside, does he stand an outside chance? He used to be the head of the UNCTAD, United Nations Congress on Trade and Development, and he left his plush job in Geneva, Switzerland, to come and contest the Kenyan elections. Of course, he wouldn't do that if he didn't think he stands a chance.
I think I'm happy about Mr. Kitui and his presidential bid. I
actually talked to him. I had an exclusive interview with him and also Musalia Mudavadi and Mr. Musyoka, Kalonzo.
That's nice.
Richard, it seems like you don't see any chances with him.
Let me tell you, Rita. Mr. Kitui, when he resigned from UNCTAD, he came back to Kenya. He said he's running for presidency. I've never seen him in a rally asking for votes.
Yeah, but you said campaign season hasn't started.
So probably later on
exactly.
he'll come out.
No. Kenyans campaign every day. From the time a new president is sworn in to the next election, we campaign every day. Mukisa Kitui has never even campaigned in Nairobi. Nairobi is a hotbed of Kenyan politics. If you don't campaign in Nairobi, forget about presidents in Kenya. Forget. Just go and vie for a regional chief or village elder.
Okay, Richard, we know that in past elections, in 1992, 1997, 2007, and 2017, we know that the general elections were characterized with violence. What are your predictions for this year, 2022? Are we likely to see this same violent incidents, or probably it would be a peaceful one?
In 2017, at least, the violence was not very, very huge, or was not in every part of the country. It was only in Nairobi and some parts of Western Kenya. And I can promise you, Rita, in 2022, after the announcement of the presidential election, I doubt there will be any violence in Kenya. We are maturing as a democracy, and everyone is being urged to take their grievances to court. We have a strong court of appeal, a strong Supreme Court, and I expect all losers and all people who are aggrieved by the elections to get hearing. So let's wait and see. But I promise you that there will be no violence after the August 9th general election.
I mean, Richard, it's good to see that Africans moving the needle positively when it comes to entrenching the principles of democracy on the continent. Like Rita and I shared earlier about the Gambians swearing in your sphere of influence, just south of East Africa. Last year, we had an election in Zambia that a lot of Africans were proud of. An incumbent president lost, and Hakainde Hichilema became a president. Elections are a civic exercise. They shouldn't be is not a life and death issue. That brings me to this question, Richard. The body in charge of conducting elections in Kenya, the Kenyan Electoral Commission, how prepared are they for the August 9th presidential elections? And do you have faith and confidence in them to deliver free and fair elections?
The last election was presidential election was nullified by the Supreme Court because of technicalities, and the IBC agreed that there had no capacity to meet the election threshold, because according to our election act, it's required that the IBC should transmit the election results online and using from every polling station using 3G network. But they had an excuse that in Kenya there is no 900% coverage of the 3G network. So we still have a challenge, because up to now we have not ensured that we have a 100% 3G network all over Kenya. So
but it's been 5 years since the last elections. How come the infrastructure has not been developed? Something so critical.
That's the big dilemma in Kenya. So we're waiting for the IBC, the Communication Authority of Kenya, CAK, to tell Kenyans how prepared they are for the election. And Beg, I can tell you that the current CEO of Communication Authority of Kenya was a former CEO of IBC. So I'm sure he knows what's required to be done to ensure that the credibility of the election is done. So the ball is with the IBC and the CAK, Communication Authority of Kenya, to ensure that IBC is able to transmit the election from all polling stations live and direct through 3G network.
Okay, if we go back to the endorsement of the governors of endorsing Raila Odinga, now one of the major issues, because he shared the views of devolution of powers, why exactly do you think this issue of devolution is so important to the governors?
Devolution is important not only to governors but to Kenyans. You see, even BBI was saying 25% of the national revenue should be shared to the counties. So devolution is more important to Kenyans at the grassroots level, because it helps to spur development. And the 30 governors who endorsed Raila, they're accusing William Ruto of not supporting devolution, because, you know, in 2010, when the new constitution, Ruto opposed the new constitution. He said it must be amended. It's not good for Kenya. But when him and Uhuru won in 2013, Ruto accepted the new constitution. So that's why the 30 governors are saying this William Ruto is not good for devolution, because he did support the constitution. So we have not seen his response to the governors. We're still waiting for William Ruto to respond to the governors, if he'll support devolution or if he'll oppose devolution. So the ball is in his court.
The ball is definitely in his court, and the ever-changing political scene in Kenya. Richard Bosire, thank you very much for taking time to share your thoughts with us here on The Conversation. And News Central will definitely be in Kenya. We'll have a presence in Kenya to cover your elections. Kenya is very important in the East African community and a major economic giant in East Africa. So we'll definitely be there. And good luck to you.
May the best man win. The man of the people win.
May the best man win.
Let's hope for the best, and I'm happy to be part of you. And welcome to Kenya. When you come over, you can take more interviews and
okay.
New.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, Richard. Thank you. You're watching The Conversation here on News Central Television. We just finished talking to Richard Bosire, a political analyst in Nairobi, Kenya. Part 2, we'll be looking at the ever-developing situation in Mali after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Conversation. Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, a former president of Mali who came to power on the promise of honest leadership, but was ousted in a coup in 2020 amidst allegations of corruption, died on Sunday at his home in Bamako, the capital of Mali, at the age of 76. Keita was president from 2013 to 2020, one of the most turbulent periods in Mali until coups ended his tenure.
Now, Malians greeted the coup plotters and the leader, Colonel Assimi Goïtas, as heroes. But when the military junta proposed this month to lengthen the transition period before new elections are held, most of Mali's neighbors in West Africa imposed harsh sanctions supported by Western powers, ECOWAS, and the United Nations. Now, on Friday, Malians rose up in protest, primarily against those sanctions, but also, in many cases, in favor of the junta. Join us now from Bamako is Hiraman Rodrigue Kone, a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies ISS Sahel program. Good to have you on the conversation.
Good afternoon.
So tell us, how are Malians reacting to the death of the ousted President Boubacar Keita, and what is the mood like in the country now?
Boubacar Keita is one of the Malian presidents who is symbolic of the democratic elites after 1998. And he has been seen as one of the who fights against the military regime under the unique party of the first president, of the second president, Moussa Traoré. So he was seen as an hero at the beginning, but unfortunately, when he came to office, finally, he has been seen as one of the most contested Malian politicians, and associated with corruption and also the the strategy of the democratic elite to manipulate election. So finally, the coup which happened in 2020 August, which pushed him out of the political scene, was really symptomatic of this anger of the social population against the elite.
Now, away from former President Keita's death, now judging from the large turnout of demonstrators we saw last Friday, it appears that the military have a strong support of Malians that protested against ECOWAS and French presence in Mali and interference in Malian affairs. What can you make of this demonstration and the mammoth crowd we saw on Friday?
Clearly, ECOWAS, by taking this sanction, ECOWAS was aiming to put pressure on the junta, which had not met its commitment of organizing the election according to the scheduled timetable, and also by trying to push turning the population against the military. But at the time being, it's the opposite effect that we are witnessing. If nobody was supporting everyone were not supporting the junta, it's clear that almost every woman has denounced, heavily denounced the sanction, mentioning its inhuman nature. Mm-hmm. And Malians feel that there is a kind of regular attacks of the body, of the regional body against the country. And so the sanction has awakened a strong sense of patriotism that the junta is skillfully exploiting to its advantages by showing that it means its popular legitimacy. But nobody wants dare to criticize, for example, the junta now. So there is the contrary, the opposite effect of the sanction that happened.
Okay, now Mali has responded and vowed to oppose ECOWAS sanctions in international courts. How do you think this will play out?
Sorry, come again, please.
ECOWAS has vowed to take the issue, Mali has vowed to take ECOWAS to international courts. How do you think this will play out?
Yeah, it is not really clear how this will functioning and what are really the legal opportunities for both sides on the side. Because there was a clear denunciation of the monetary, how to say, sanction of UMOA, the monetary body. It is not clear that it was legal that the UMOA take those decisions endorsed by CEDEAO, and so that is not at the time being not really clear how this will function and how this judgment could be done.
Now, looking at the effect of the sanctions, Mali's neighbor, Guinea, there's an expression that Guinea and Mali share the same lungs from the same body, and Mamadi Doumbouya has come out to support Mali, and he said Guinea's borders would always be open to Mali. We also have Mauritania, which is exactly not in ECOWAS. So you have these two countries. How effective will their support be to the junta in cushioning the effect of the ECOWAS sanctions? Would it make the ECOWAS sanctions irrelevant, or it's still going to bite the junta and Malians? Would they still feel the full effect of it with the support from Mauritania and Guinea?
That's a good question, because the strategy of ECOWAS was to make a total closure of Mali by closing borders, aerial and terrestrial also borders, and ground borders, and also financial sanctions. It is really difficult to see how this will clearly impact for several reasons. First, as you mentioned, Algeria and Mauritania did not clearly endorse the ECOWAS position. They are frontier from Mali, and Malian authorities could access to the port, and Guinea clearly showed that they are not with this saying they are rejecting the sanctions because themselves are in a transition that they are not clearly put the hand of that they are not clearly claim at which time this transition will end. And so this is the first point. And secondly, the African Union has not endorsed the sanction. There was a discussion among AU Security Council and Egypt. Apparently, Egypt and Algeria were against those sanctions. Decisions have not clearly been taken for the time being, but it means that there is also this. And the Iranian ban is not also effective. You have airlines company coming from Turkey, also from Tunisia and other parts. So this is very difficult. And we must also know that, secondly, that those sanctions are double-sided sword, because it affects Mali, but it also affects the West African countries. Sanctions were took in 2012 after the Sanogo coup, and we have clearly seen that in Côte d'Ivoire, for example, heavily depending on cattle from Mali, and also in Ghana there was also a popular demonstration about that. So this is very tricky to have this kind of sanction, and instead of turning the population against the junta, it's reinforcing also its popular legitimacy. So it is not really clear that this sanction could have the effect they are willing to attain.
Okay, while countries like Mauritania and Guinea are supporting the junta and, of course, not, or rather against the sanctions placed by ECOWAS, countries like Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire are totally for the sanctions and against the junta. Now, let's look at the international bodies now. We know that France has, the former colonial power, has talked about remaining committed to the military presence in Mali to help fend off the jihadist insurgents, but would not stay if the country's volatile political situation became untenable. Now, let's go deeper. What does a former colonial power like France stand to gain from it all?
Yes, France have a key role in this situation of Mali. As you know, there was at the beginning of the jihadi insurgency in 2012, France was one of the first contributors to the international troops to stop this jihadi insurgency in the country. And now they provided almost 5,000 of soldiers on the ground. And they have also economic interest in the country. And they are also strategic position in Mali, in the Sahel region. So it's something France is trying to, because Mali now is coming like an international fighting territory between France and also the region which are returning in Africa state. So now it's something really difficult and tricky because we are seeing a kind of internationalizing of the Malian case, and which is not really good for Malians themselves, because the crisis in Mali is a multidimensional one. It's a political crisis with the Bamako government and the Northern Tuareg rebellion. It's a jihadist insurgency. It's also insecurity linked to intercommunal violences around land and so on. By internationalizing this issue between France and Russia, it's making a more complexity of the situation, and it makes it quite difficult to have a genuine solution of the situation.
Okay, happy you mentioned the internalization of this conflict. It's coming to look like a geopolitical chess game here, and like you rightly said, it's the ordinary Malians that will suffer. Russia happens to be the main defender of the Malian regime of Colonel Assimi Goïta. Russia and China both shot down the United Nations Security Council resolution that condemned the coup that happened and the extension of the electoral timetable. You also have France on one part. You said they've invested a lot. They have economic interest in Operation Barkhane. They've committed almost 5,000 troops to the Malian effort. But they're extremely angry at Colonel Goïta for having Russian presence. I'm talking about the Wagner group with close ties to the Kremlin. My question is this. Mali is a sovereign country. They definitely do have some right to decide who they want to conduct business with. And will Paris ever respect this, or are we in for, or is Mali in the middle of a geopolitical chess game here?
Unfortunately, now Mali is in the middle of this kind of geopolitical fighting. But you mentioned that point of sovereignty, which is really important. And it's one of the bases of the anti-colonialism and anti-French feeling, which is deep and rooted here in population, by seeing that there is a kind of returning of a neocolonialism approach of French in the situation. So the junta is generally and skillfully playing on those anti-French feeling, which is also a anger against, how to say, Malian elites, which, as I said at the beginning, emerged from the democracy governance. Democracy now is seen as a strategy for Western countries, especially for France, to impose its elites, to impose Malian elites that who are in favor we are aligned with French policies, strange policy, and this is the point. So even friends are important. I can say we cannot deny that is one of the main partner of Malian. The French are investing, as I said, economically, diplomatically. It is really important to respect the sovereignty and also to respect the independence of the Malian government. And sometimes it's not all the time seen like this, and intervention from French authorities are sometimes really questionable. As for example, when there was this first strategy to reconquer the territory after the jihadists tried to join Bamako, and finally they did not accept that the Malian army entered in Kidal and Gao. That was really a great mistake from a big mistake from the Malian state during this period.
Okay, just like you rightly said, now France came back into Mali when there was a bit of crisis, insurgency, jihad insurgency in Mali, northern Mali, and there was a accord that was signed between Bamako and Paris. Now, now they are calling for a review of the 2013 bilateral defense accords with Bamako and Paris. How do you think it's going to play out? Because right now that Paris and Mali are not in good terms. Mali is complaining about France's intervention of airspace.
Yeah, for sure that the situation we are now in a history moment, seconds that is really the relation between France and Mali is really bad. It is really bad, and we have seen the escalation since some time. Yes, of course, the Malian government are trying, or authority are trying to use this moment to renegotiate the positionings of France. But behind this is also a strategy by enforcing the relation with the Russian government, which at my sense is not the full solution, is not also the ending solution. It's like this: you want to come from rain and just go in the river by saying that you want to dry on the sun. That's not the good solution, because the security issue, like the development issues in African countries, should be something really at the commitment of our elites. And Malians should also note that even if they want to renegotiate their relation with the French and the military side, they should really take care and have and I can say a rational and a non-affect posture and position in the negotiation of this situation, to see their own capacity and how they could really negotiate good deal in favor of Malian people and country.
Now, just before we begin to wrap things up, on the 11th of January, Russian ambassador to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenzia, said the imposition of sanctions against the already difficult circumstances faced by the Malian people will considerably worsen the situation in the country and for the population. I believe we've have a consensus on this. And we've seen how the sanctions not only hurt the Malian people, but also neighboring countries. Ivory Coast is highly dependent on Mali, can't get beef, and everyone is interconnected in one way or the other. Going forward, do you see any sort of rapprochement or detente? When will negotiations start to renegotiate this sanctions? Because clearly it's hurting everyone.
Yes, I think it's really important that everybody see what is playing in Mali. It's a very key position for all the West African, and especially for coastal states, which are now witnessing since some year already jihadist attacks coming at them from terrorists. So it's really something important to mention and to have it on screen. So for me, the negotiation should take account the ECOWAS countries. The poster of this, I can say, is the martial tone they use, and is not a good approach. It's not a good approach. They must not only focusing only on election, saying that election must be all the solution of the problem. They must take account of the situation, the security situation, which is a great threat, a big threat for everybody. And there won't be a good fight against the jihadist group if there is not a genuine collaboration and a West African state collaboration in the fighting of the terrorism in the Sahel region. What's happened in the Sahel region are clearly linked to roots in also cross-sustain. You can see that the jihadist group are exploiting illicit crime ways to have financial support and to reinforce themselves and expand. So the negotiation, I think, now in the region must take account all those things, those security aspects, but also there is clearly what we are seeing also a humanitarian crisis, which is very important. But because of the suspension of all the flights and also the closing of the territory, NGOs don't have access to some to give services to civilians.
I must say there's a lot to consider in bringing Mali out of this turmoil. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation today.
Piraman Kone, we do appreciate your insights on the subject and we look forward to having you again very soon. Mali is very important in West Africa and we'll keep following this developing situation. Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation.
Thank you, thank you.
And that's where we'll draw the curtains for today's edition. It has been a most interesting one. We had formerly Richard from Kenya, yes, and he spoke a lot about the elections and what to hope for August 9 elections. And now we also talked about the military coup in Mali following ECOWAS sanctions and the impact on the people. That's where we'll wrap up for today's edition of The Conversation. I am Rita Omodia.
And I'm Benga Boro. I'll catch you on Friday on another edition of The Conversation.